There are two futures possible. In one, Planet X is real, and the other, Planet X is not. Let's consider each. When I post a Planet X video, the number of views is amazing. 1,000 views a day. The subject is clearly one that people are interested in. Why? Because they might die. It's like being on vacation and reading and hearing about a large bear that's eating local people, and last night he ate the people who live in the next cabin. You can see why a story about a bear would be interesting. Planet X is no bear. A bear can eat a few people each day and then he wants to sleep. This bear doesn't need any sleep, and he's not satisfied with just one family. He wants to eat every family in every town, and he has a taste for coastal people and those who live less than 600 feet above sea level. This bear has been here before, and he did so much damage that those who might have written it down all died and couldn't. When you're eating bugs to survive, you don't feel much like writing your memoirs for people who will see it 4,000 years from now, almost. The earth has scars that indicate that the bear was here, and he not only ate most of the people, but he chewed up the earth so bad that the earth hasn't yet healed in thousands of years. This is the nastiest bear that we've ever had to bear. Get it? It's a real bear. We humans put too much importance on ourselves. Think of it in this way. If there was a large object the size of a planet, and it was headed for a planet with 100 billion people on it, would anyone in the universe care? Americans are shopping at Walmart. They don't care how many people are dying on a distant planet. Why would we care about people that are 200 light years away? And also, what could we do for them? If we had the technology, would we have important projects to tend to? Sometimes people care for the disadvantaged, and one person might take in one indigent fellow and help him get back on his feet. But how many can you take in before your own situation is tilted out of balance and you become one of them? Where would you put 100 billion refugees? Who would pay the cost of housing them and feeding them? These are questions we should ponder before we assume that we deserve to be saved by outsiders. Our own people would sell us out faster than you can say Democrats and Republicans. Some can't bear to hear about Planet X, and they just try to shut you up by blaming you for bringing them the message of truth. They say that you're not being positive. Well, if Planet X is real, you're probably going to die. Now, how do I say that in a positive way? Do you want the truth, or do you want propaganda to appease you so you can go to work and pay the IRS? Do slaves have a right to know the truth? We have a Congress which is supposed to represent you. Too bad they don't. We have a puppet president who was apparently groomed from birth to be the dictator of the world by the secret government that operates behind the scenes. This secret government that we are all aware of by now uses thousands of government agencies to do their spying, manipulation, and control, to the point that there's no such thing as free elections anymore. They install whomever they want for puppet president, and anyone who doesn't play ball with the controllers just doesn't get in. It's a good old boys network, as corrupt as any you've ever known. We pay NASA to study the sky and the universe, and they betray us. There is no power for the people built into the system so that we can shut off any government agency which is not performing to our satisfaction. We have a terrorist scam agency, TSA, touching our private parts, humiliating us at the airport under the cover of looking for terrorists, while the government won't answer our questions on 9/11 so we can expose who the real terrorists are. Are they hiding something? Well, I'm glad you finally guessed it. Questions bring out the truth, and so they have banned questions, hoping that this will deny us the truth, but we're learning the truth anyway, aren't we? It is likely that 9/11 was an inside job because the evidence is overwhelming that it was done by the CIA and Mossad. The fingerprints of both are everywhere, like O.J. Simpson, who murdered 2 people and left a trail of blood all over himself, his vehicle, and his home. And like O.J. Simpson, this group of murderers has escaped justice on those murders. O.J. Simpson, by the way, was convicted on other charges and is serving a prison sentence in Nevada and won't be eligible for parole until at least 2017, long after the pole shift, perhaps. And so if a big wave comes in on the California coast, O.J. might die in prison, and that would be delivery of justice to a clear-thinking individual, in my opinion. O.J. dies in prison, but what about those who killed at least 3,000 Americans on 9/11? Do they escape justice? Maybe not. Planet X sort of settles all outstanding debts, doesn't it? Planet X organizes all the bad people and incarcerates them in an underground prison on a prison planet, while the rest of us are released from this prison where the IRS owns you as a slave and government passes laws as your representatives which you don't approve of, like the creation of the Department of Homeland Security and its TSA division, which is looking for the real terrorists, and we're all supposed to be fooled, as many were when O.J. Simpson said he wants to help find the real killers of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. Planet X might be bad, and you might think it's not positive, but you haven't really looked at the way Planet X settles old scores. O.J. Simpson might die in prison, drowned like a rat. All the rats in government move to a safe underground bunker, and should there be a crack in the earth, they could all drown down there. The underground bunkers which were paid for with your tax dollars, yet you're not allowed to seek refuge in them. You're not even allowed to know about them. But if anybody wanted to get rid of all the bad people, sealing them up in this underground tomb is one way. Making them drink their own piss over and over again to survive. I would rather die on the surface than to drink their piss, wouldn't you? A virus gets into their drinking supply, and they're all dead, right? In order to store water, they certainly cut into impermeable rock, and will use that to store water. What if that rock develops a crack and the water escapes? Everyone dies of thirst. All their crops need water. No crops, no future. What if the man-made aquifer dissolves arsenic in the rock and their water is poisoned? They put rat poison into our drinking water and helped Alcoa dispose of toxic wastes that were so deadly that there was no other place to put them. And so they dumped waste fluoride compounds into our drinking water. And if you're going to enjoy karma, their water storage tanks underground just might absorb arsenic from the rock, and they all get poisoned. Better yet, fluorine. Wouldn't that be nice? But arsenic is also nice, and I hope they did adequate testing before they chose which impermeable rock would store their water supply. You see, when you build an underground city, you must build it where the rock is porous. And if you use porous rock to store water, you can put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye. I hope they know how to make self-contained underground cities, because it's not that easy to develop an ecosystem which uses up all the wastes and has a perfect balance. Where would the trash from all those people go? Did they create an underground landfill? Once those materials are used up, how would they replace them? I don't think it's that easy to create an underground city that works perfectly the first time. If they don't have plenty of scientists, they just might not survive long down there. They might be as dead as Ron Goldman, Nicole Brown Simpson, and in the future, you and me. I was not fooled by O.J. Simpson and his dream team of high-paid lawyers who think more about money than about truth and justice. The courtroom is a place where the poor have no chance, but a wealthy man can hire the best and the most corrupt lawyers who set him free for a price. People say, if there's a God, why would God allow this? My answer is, I have no idea why a God would be so unjust. But if justice is delivered in the end, then I can't wait to hear that O.J. Simpson drowned in prison, and that the secret government and their minions have all drowned in an underground city that developed a virus or leaked in water. It might be worth eating bugs to survive just to hear that O.J. Simpson and the bunker minions are all dead. Hell is supposed to be below you. Are the bunkers below you? They certainly are. But hell is supposed to be with fire, not water. So dare we consider an accumulation of gases that ignite and burn everything underground? That's a tantalizing thought, isn't it? Anyway, if we don't get the fire and all we get is the water, a water death for those guys down there would be okay with me. How about you? Would you like to see all the bad people organize themselves into those underground cities to make it easy to drown them or infect them with a virus? They created a lot of viruses in the lab to kill us. What if one of those viruses were to somehow be carried down there? Wouldn't that be fun? The AIDS virus, for example. Suppose they have a cure, but that cure requires one thing that is somehow disturbed, can't grow properly. Not enough was known about it, and the cure for AIDS doesn't work anymore. If they are missing one thing in their new underground system, it could cause huge problems, which are like dominoes, and one insufficiency leads to another, and another, and another, and failure after failure puts their underground city at great risk. I would not want to be among them, living in a man-made artificial environment and being denied those millions of creative minds on the surface to solve any problem we encounter. I think they could all perish if one thing is out of place or one thing is not accounted for. The underground is not better than the surface if problems that emerge underground are different than problems on the surface. What if some unknown process begins to consume all available oxygen? That's an Addams Family thought to ponder, isn't it? Where does the bunker trash go? How do you recycle everything? What are the effects of recycling everything? What if some process produces fluorine and they don't have our drinking water to dispose of it into? Where do you dump chemicals that are so toxic that nobody is willing to accept them? You would have to put it next to somebody's living quarters, wouldn't you? This underground bunker can develop many problems, and they might be stranded down there if all those lucrative nuclear power plants that they built on the surface get wrecked and poison the earth so that they can never return to the surface. Oh, I just love thinking about these problems. Do you think they will introduce life forms into their food supply by growing seeds in wastes? Do you think that they will have to recycle their own urine and purify it and drink it over again? What about medicines that turn up in the urine? How do you get prescription drugs out of the drinking water, and where do you dispose of them? Would you like to live in the underground bunkers and have to drink someone else's piss with their medicines in it? I wouldn't. Those people in the underground city might not be so lucky after all, if you think about it. They took enough food to last a few years, because we might have volcanic dust in the sky, blocking out the sun for decades, and while we starve to death on the surface, they have huge stores of food and hydroponic systems to grow anything they need down there. They have no intention of allowing you in because you'd consume some of their food, and you would have waste to get rid of. These are both problems. Well, what if Monsanto's poisons get into their food? What if Roundup causes all the males to be infertile and they die out in one generation? Then the underground bunker did not keep them alive, it only prolonged their death, didn't it? When you ponder the effects of Planet X, you see a lot of destruction. When you think about that destruction and the way Planet X organizes the bad guys, there's a positive side to all of this, and I can now be very, very positive. Now, what makes you so sure that you won't find that discarding this frail body of yours is such a bad thing? The aliens have politely told us that we're going to experience some changes in our physical form. Isn't that a nice way to say you're dead meat? You're dead meat, but that's not all bad because you have already had thousands, if not millions of lifetimes, and your soul doesn't die. This is the end of your earth school where you experienced injustice, slavery, and prison. Now you know what that's all about. Your soul needs experience so that you can appreciate freedom, justice, and righteousness. If there's a God, you're going to know very well why love is nice and greed is vice. You'll understand better why service to others works and service to self leads to underground bunkers, cracks in the earth, drinking other people's piss, and drowning. Or it could lead to infertility in males, or viruses that can't be cured, and everyone dies in the underground tomb created by those who died there and paid for by us. And what appears to be money well spent and revenge is so sweet. If my tax dollars pay for the tomb of the bad guys, I'll pay extra just to see them die a horrible death. Does that sound like revenge? Well, it should, because that's exactly what I'm feeling. I'm angry about being touched in my genital area, humiliated by the TSA, and being told that they are looking for the real terrorists, when I know very well who the real terrorists are, and I know why they stopped answering our questions about 9/11. I know why Building 7 came down, and I know how it came down. And they can pretend that they have me fooled, but there are many of us who were not fooled. We know that 9/11 was not done by Muslims. It was done by Mossad and those in the CIA under orders from this secret government which just might have built their own tombs. So when you think about Planet X and you think it's a terrible thing, just remember, it's not so terrible to be freed from this prison planet while those who deceived you time and time again organized themselves into underground tombs and might never emerge from these depths. Planet X might be the best thing that's ever happened to this planet. It ends nuclear testing and all nuclear weapons. You don't want to survive when all those nuclear power plants are destroyed and their radioactive material is spread all over the earth like Fukushima. You don't want to live in a world where you no longer get bananas grown in Central America, grapes grown in Chile, melons grown where the soils are sandy and where it's hot, and all of these fruits and vegetables delivered to you at prices you can afford. You don't want to live in a world where you have to plant your own food and eat insects just to stay alive, while the effects of nuclear poisoning take down life everywhere. A few will be chosen for survival so that the earth can be seeded by human beings once again after the cleansing. If you are chosen to survive so you can be poisoned by radioactivity and have to eat bugs, and you want to survive and don't mind eating bugs, then I wish you the best. For me, bugs are not what I had in mind to eat. I prefer pizza, peaches, bananas, and rice, but not all together. A world without bananas, peaches, and grapes, which are in abundance in grocery stores, is not my kind of world. I agree that the cleansing is necessary and overdue as well. I go along with the destruction caused by Planet X, and if it's time, let the show begin. That's my message for today. Thanks for watching. Planet X, blessing or curse? There are two futures possible. In one, Planet X is real, and the other, Planet X is not. Let's consider each. When I post a Planet X video, the number of views is amazing. 1,000 views a day. The subject is clearly one that people are interested in. Why? Because they might die. It's like being on vacation and reading and hearing about a large bear that's eating local people, and last night he ate the people who live in the next cabin. You can see why a story about a bear would be interesting. Planet X is no bear. A bear can eat a few people each day and then he wants to sleep. This bear doesn't need any sleep, and he's not satisfied with just one family. He wants to eat every family in every town, and he has a taste for coastal people and those who live less than 600 feet above sea level. This bear has been here before, and he did so much damage that those who might have written it down all died and couldn't. When you're eating bugs to survive, you don't feel much like writing your memoirs for people who will see it 4,000 years from now, almost. The earth has scars that indicate that the bear was here, and he not only ate most of the people, but he chewed up the earth so bad that the earth hasn't yet healed in thousands of years. This is the nastiest bear that we've ever had to bear. Get it? It's a real bear. We humans put too much importance on ourselves. Think of it in this way. If there was a large object the size of a planet, and it was headed for a planet with 100 billion people on it, would anyone in the universe care? Americans are shopping at Walmart. They don't care how many people are dying on a distant planet. Why would we care about people that are 200 light years away? And also, what could we do for them? If we had the technology, would we have important projects to tend to? Sometimes people care for the disadvantaged, and one person might take in one indigent fellow and help him get back on his feet. But how many can you take in before your own situation is tilted out of balance and you become one of them? Where would you put 100 billion refugees? Who would pay the cost of housing them and feeding them? These are questions we should ponder, before we assume that we deserve to be saved by outsiders. Our own people would sell